this environment that's like a garden, and there's fellowship, and it's utopia, and all of our needs are met, and then the fall takes place. The fall takes place, and everything gets distorted away from God's purposes, okay? And then the flood comes, and the whole deal, and then we have this inciting incident which starts this process. Now, every really fun story has a twist, doesn't it? Right at the end, something twists. I don't know if I can remember how I was thinking about this, so I wrote it all down. But really, really great stories, they always kind of throw you a curve at the end, and so it's like the good guy either ends up being the bad guy, or the woman that you thought the good guy should love, but he couldn't love her because there was something funny. He felt something funny about her, and when he'd kiss her, and then it ends up that it's really like his sister, and that he finds out they were separated at birth, and they never knew they existed. But her best friend, who he really loves, but couldn't because he was supposed to love this other woman who ends up being his sister, but now because he finds out it's his sister, now he's available and he can marry her, and then his sister that we thought was the one he was going to marry can marry his best friend who really loved her but couldn't marry her because his best friend was going to marry her, but now that the best friend's the brother and is going to marry the other person, and everything ends up happily, and it's just all of these twists, and you kind of walk out kind of laughing like, whoa, they really got me. They really got me there. Well, right here is where I think the curveball comes on all this, because I think our expectation about the story is that at the end of the story, everything gets put back like it was. And that we've got the garden and, kind of utopia, and we can walk with God and all of our needs are met and everything that went wrong is made right. That's what we think. And it's wrong. That's not what happens. What happens is something so infinitely greater than what happened, than what we would have had the fall never happened. The end of the story is that God had something planned before any of that's infinitely greater had this never happened. And that ultimately a redeemed universe and a renewed and recreated universe and a new heavens and a new earth and a new city in which to dwell is going to be infinitely more spectacular than if things just would have been put back the way they were at the beginning. And the curveball is this new city, I think, in a sense, because John now sees this, and whether it's a literal city or whether it is simply a symbol representing something that this city represents, it doesn't really matter, because it's so awesome that it just would absolutely blow your mind. And so he sees this city coming down out of heaven, and again, we're told dimensions, and if it's a literal city, we saw this one again in Revelation, it's 1,500 miles by 1,500 miles. Now, roughly, the footprint compared to the United States might look something like this, if you envision this against the United States, but it's not just two-dimensional. It's a three-dimensional city, and it's 1,500 miles high. It is 56 billion cubic acres in this city. I mean, this is immense, literally beyond imagination. And there is so much room. There's a number of characteristics about it. First of all, the way it's described here is trying to help us understand that it is indescribably beautiful. Indescribably beautiful. And people say, well, what's the deal with the precious stones and streets of gold? And people make fun of it. Oh yeah, you're going to have, pearly gates and streets of gold and all this. I think kind of Well, first of all, if that's what it is, it's going to be awesome to begin with, if it's literal and physical and that's what it is. But it's almost as if God's also saying, the things that people place ultimate value on in this life are like building materials in the world to come. I mean, people sell their souls for gold. Do you understand that? I mean, that's the theme of the world, guys. People sell their souls for gold, and in the New Jerusalem, they pave the streets with it. I mean, that's kind of the image here. Indescribably beautiful. And I really think that within our hearts, God has placed this capacity to enjoy beauty, that there's an aesthetic to creation that's just been hindered, and suddenly, man, whatever life in the age to come is, it is beautiful beyond imagination. Secondly, it's immense, which we've already talked about, but one of the things that strikes me about this is, clear back after Jesus rose from the dead, why didn't he just call the ball game there? You ever wondered that? I mean, why 2,000 years? And, we had a little fun thing that I did when we went through the book of Revelation. I calculated the population of this place based upon if each family of 4 got a cubic acre, and it came out like something like 256 trillion or billion. Anyway, that number, if that, without density, we're not talking about New York City here. It's like, your nearest neighbor is a cubic acre away or something. Anyway.